The unforgiving sun beat down on the quarry, a merciless god in a sky of bleached blue. Below, the world was a symphony of misery, the rhythmic clang of pickaxes against stone the only music. This was the quarry of despair, a pit where hope came to die. Dust, sharp as powdered glass, coated everything, filling the lungs of the damned who toiled there. Among them was Marcus. While the others moved with the slumped shoulders of defeated men, their eyes hollowed out by endless labor. Marcus's gaze was different. It held a spark, a flinty resilience that refused to be extinguished by the heat and the hopelessness. His jaw was set, a line of defiance carved into his sunburnt face, each swing of his pickaxe a silent rebellion against his fate. The midday heat reached its zenith, shimmering over the rocks. An old man, his body frail as a dried leaf, stumbled and fell, his pickaxe clattering uselessly. The overseer, a brute of a man named Brutus, whose cruelty was his only virtue, descended upon him like a vulture. The sharp crack of a whip split the air, followed by a pained cry. Once, twice, the leather bit into the old man's back. Something inside Marcus snapped. He dropped his tool, lunging forward with a speed that belied his exhaustion. He snatched the whip from Brutus's hand, the braided leather coiling in his grasp. For a moment, surprise flickered in the overseer's eyes, replaced by rage. Marcus stood his ground, a surprising strength flowing through him, but the moment was fleeting. Guards swarmed him, their clubs and fists raining down until he was a bruised heap on the dusty ground. Marcus expected death. He had challenged authority, a crime punishable by a swift and brutal end. But as he lay there, tasting blood and dust, he saw not an executioner, but a pair of expensive leather sandals. A man stood over him, his robes clean, his face impassive and calculating. This was a lanista, a buyer and trainer of gladiators, who had been visiting the quarry. He had seen not an act of insubordination, but a display of raw, untamed spirit. He saw a fighter. A hushed negotiation followed, the clink of coins sealing Marcus's fate. Instead of the grave, he was bound in fresh chains and led away from the quarry, leaving the dust and despair behind for an unknown but different kind of hell. His new world was the Ludus, a gladiator school where the air smelled of sweat, steel, and blood. The sounds of the quarry were replaced by the clang of swords, the shouts of trainers, and the grunts of men pushing their bodies past their limits. It was a place of brutal conditioning. A montage of his new life flashed by. Grueling exercises under a watchful eye, the sting of the training sword against his skin, the grim, determined faces of his fellow trainees, each one a potential brother in arms or a future opponent in the arena. They were all broken things, being reforged in the fires of the Ludus, their humanity stripped away and replaced with the instinct of a killer. The day of his first true test arrived. The lanista pitted him against a veteran, a hulking giant of a man whose body was a roadmap of scars. The fight was a brutal lesson. The larger gladiator's power was overwhelming, driving Marcus back with every blow. But Marcus was not the same man who had toiled in the quarry. He was faster, honed by the relentless training. He used his agility, dodging and weaving, letting the giant expend his energy in furious, clumsy swings. Seeing an opening, Marcus ducked under a wide arc, his wooden sword sweeping low to strike his opponent's legs. The giant stumbled, and in that instant, Marcus twisted his blade, disarming him with a sharp flick of the wrist. The training sword clattered to the ground. Silence fell. The lanista, watching from the side, gave a single, almost imperceptible nod of approval. Marcus stood panting, his body aching but his spirit soaring. He looked up, his face a mask of fierce determination, ready for whatever trials were yet to come. The dust of the training yard became a second skin to Marcus, each grain a testament to his unyielding will. Days bled into weeks, and with every swing of his gladius, his movements became sharper, his instincts keener. The minor skirmishes in the smaller arenas were but a prelude, each victory a stepping stone, building a quiet reputation within the walls of the Ludus. He was no longer just another slave with a sword. He was a contender, his confidence growing with the calluses on his hands and the scars on his arms. The whisper of his name, Marcus, began to carry weight, a murmur of potential that rippled through the ranks of seasoned fighters. He was ascending, his eyes fixed on a horizon far beyond the dusty yard. This ascent did not go unnoticed, particularly by Aurelius, the Ludus's reigning champion. A man sculpted from victories, Aurelius saw Marcus as little more than an ambitious whelp, a fleeting spark in the shadow of his own roaring flame. He dismissed the newcomer with a sneer, his own legend a shield of arrogance. Yet, during one grueling training session, their paths finally crossed. A sparring match, intended by Aurelius to be a lesson in humility, became a fierce contest of wills. Marcus, though outmatched in experience, met every blow with relentless determination, his tenacity surprising the champion. He was thrown to the dirt, but he rose again and again, his eyes burning with a challenge that Aurelius could no longer ignore. It was not a victory in combat, but a declaration of intent. Respect, though unspoken, had found its first root. The summons came on a sweltering afternoon. Marcus was chosen not for a skirmish, but for the grand spectacle, a primus palis fight in the city's colossal amphitheater. The news spread like wildfire, and the air crackled with anticipation. The city itself seemed to pulse with a feverish energy on the day of the games. Throngs of citizens, from plebeians to patricians, poured into the stone behemoth, their voices a rising tide of excitement. The roar of the crowd was a living entity, a beast demanding tribute. For Marcus, standing in the shadowy confines of the waiting gate, the sound was both terrifying and intoxicating. This was the stage he had bled for, the grand arena where legends were forged or shattered. When the gates were thrown open, the blinding sun and the deafening roar were overwhelming. His opponent was a giant of a man, a veteran known for his brute strength, and their clash was immediate and brutal. Steel rang against steel, the sounds echoing the crowd's frenzied shouts. The fight was a grueling dance of death, pushing Marcus past the brink of exhaustion. Every muscle screamed, his lungs burned, but his mind remained sharp. He saw an opening not through force, but through cunning. Feigning a stumble, he drew the giant forward into a reckless charge. In a swift, calculated move, Marcus used his opponent's momentum against him, sidestepping and delivering a precise, disabling strike. The giant fell, and a moment of stunned silence was shattered by an eruption of applause. From the stands, Aurelius watched, a look of grudging respect finally dawning on his face. Victorious, Marcus stood in the center of the arena, the sand stained with his effort. The crowd, now his, chanted his name in a rhythmic, thunderous wave. Marcus! 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 His gaze swept over the thousands of faces, finally landing on the opulent podium. There, a high-ranking senator, a man of immense power, watched him not with the bloodlust of the mob, but with a sharp, calculating intrigue. In that fleeting moment of connection, a new possibility bloomed in Marcus's mind. The cheers, the victory, the respect, they were not the end. He realized with sudden clarity that the arena might not be his final destination, but a stepping stone to a different kind of power, a potential path to a freedom he had never dared to imagine. From the blood-soaked sands of the Colosseum to the disciplined ranks of the legions, the story of Marcus is a testament to the idea that in Rome, destiny is not always written by birth, but forged in the crucible of ambition and valor. His journey from a celebrated gladiator to a respected centurion encapsulates the spirit of an empire where even a man with no name could rise to command. This is the chronicle of his ascent. Following a spectacular victory that left the arena roaring his name, Marcus found himself face to face not with another challenger, but with Senator Valerius. The old patrician, his eyes sharp and calculating, saw more than just a brute in Marcus. He saw a weapon, a leader of men constrained by the chains of his station. Valerius, ever the shrewd politician, recognized the gladiator's raw talent and tactical mind. He made Marcus an offer that was almost unheard of, a chance to trade the fleeting glory of the arena for the enduring honor of the Roman legions. For a man like Marcus, born with nothing, it was the opportunity of a lifetime, a path to freedom, citizenship, and a future he had never dared to imagine. Marcus accepted without hesitation. The transition from the individualistic combat of a gladiator to the synchronized discipline of a legionary was jarring. He initially struggled with the rigid formations and the absolute obedience required, his instincts screaming for the flamboyant, crowd-pleasing moves that had kept him alive in the arena. However, his inherent strength and quick mind allowed him to adapt swiftly. He learned the value of the shield wall, the importance of a comrade at his side, and the intricate dance of legionary warfare. His fellow soldiers, at first wary of the famous gladiator, soon came to respect his prowess and unwavering resolve, and he began to forge the bonds of brotherhood that define a legion. His first taste of true war came in a series of grueling border skirmishes along the Germanic frontier. In the chaos of real battle, far from the controlled environment of the arena, Marcus's skills shone with a terrifying brilliance. He was a natural leader, his voice cutting through the din of combat, his actions inspiring courage in those around him. He moved with a deadly grace, his gladius a blur of motion, but always with a tactical awareness that protected his unit. His commanding officer, the veteran centurion Gaius, a man who had seen countless recruits come and go, took special notice. He saw in Marcus not just a fighter, but a commander in the making. The ultimate test of his potential arrived during a devastating ambush in a dense forest. Barbarian warriors swarmed from the trees, shattering the legion's disciplined advance and striking down Centurion Gaius with a grievous wound. As panic began to ripple through the ranks, Marcus stepped into the void. With a commanding roar, he rallied the faltering soldiers, his experience in the chaotic melees of the arena giving him a unique clarity. He swiftly organized a defensive circle, barking orders and directing a fierce counterattack that exploited a momentary weakness in the enemy's assault. His decisive action turned the tide, saving his cohort from annihilation and solidifying his reputation as a man born to lead. For his extraordinary bravery and leadership under fire, Marcus was summoned before the legion's legate. In a formal ceremony, he was stripped of his common soldier's gear and presented with the armor and plumed helmet of a centurion. As he fastened the greaves and donned the transverse crest, the former gladiator stood transformed. He was no longer a slave fighting for the crowd's amusement, but a commander of Roman soldiers, a protector of the empire. Looking out towards the horizon, a landscape filled with both peril and promise, Centurion Marcus understood that his journey had only just begun. He had risen from the dust of the arena, and now the fate of Rome itself might one day rest upon his shoulders. The saga of Marcus, the gladiator who became a centurion, is a powerful chapter in the grand narrative of Rome. It serves as a stirring reminder that courage and capability could sometimes transcend the rigid class structures of the ancient world. His ascent from the lowest rungs of society to a position of command is a story that has echoed through the ages, inspiring countless others to believe that even in the face of insurmountable odds, a new destiny can be seized. From the dust of the provinces to the heart of the empire, the name Marcus was whispered with a mixture of awe and reverence. But destiny had a grander stage for him yet. An urgent summons arrived, sealed with the emperor's own signet. Legate Marcus was called back to Rome. The empire, teetering on the brink, faced a threat unlike any seen in a generation. Barbarian hordes from the north, a relentless tide of fury and steel, were crashing against the frontiers, threatening to spill into the very heartlands of civilization. The Senate was in panic, the people afraid. Emperor Antonius needed more than just a soldier. He needed a savior, a leader whose very name was a weapon. He needed Marcus. The weight of the empire now rested on Marcus's shoulders. Entrusted with the command of every legion on the northern front, he faced a monumental task. The war room became his sanctuary, lit by the flickering glow of oil lamps as he pored over maps day and night. His genius was not just in grand strategy, but in understanding the heart of the soldier. Before the assembled legions, his voice rang out, not with boasts of glory, but with a promise of shared sacrifice and unwavering resolve. He spoke of Rome, not as a distant marble city, but as a home, a legacy to be defended with their last breath. On the battlefield, his command was a symphony of disciplined destruction. He orchestrated feigned retreats, devastating pincer movements, and cavalry charges that shattered the enemy's lines, turning the tide of a war that many had already deemed lost. Victory, when it came, was absolute. The barbarian threat was not merely pushed back, it was annihilated. News of the triumph preceded his return, and when Marcus's legions marched back towards the capital, their path was lined with grateful citizens. The road to Rome became a river of cheers and thrown flowers. His triumphal parade was a spectacle for the ages, a testament to the monumental victory he had secured. The city, once gripped by fear, now erupted in celebration. Banners bearing his name fluttered from every building as he rode through the Forum, the embodiment of Roman strength and the savior of the empire. The celebration culminated in a grand ceremony within the hallowed halls of the Senate House. Before the assembled aristocracy and the watchful eyes of the gods, Emperor Antonius rose. He spoke of Marcus's journey, his loyalty, and his unparalleled military mind. With solemnity and pride, he removed the insignia of a legate and bestowed upon Marcus the title of General of all Roman armies. It was an unprecedented honor, granting him authority second only to the emperor himself. The chamber echoed with acclamation as Marcus accepted the honor, his expression a mask of stoic humility, his heart swelling with a sense of duty fulfilled. As the sun cast a golden glow over the 7 hills, General Marcus stood alone on a high balcony of the Palatine Palace. The magnificent expanse of Rome, a city he had saved, stretched out before him. The sounds of the bustling capital faded into a distant hum. In the quiet solitude of that moment, he reflected on the impossible path he had walked. From a nameless slave in the fighting pits to the most powerful military commander in the known world. His journey was a testament not just to his own strength and resilience, but to the very ideal of Rome itself. That even from the lowest depths, a man could rise to touch the heavens through honor, courage, and an unbreakable will. This was his story, a legend etched into the very stones of the eternal city.